Hello, my name's Connor Henderson, and I'm standing in front of the Screaming Tunnel in Niagara Falls, Ontario. This tunnel is apparently a very haunted location and locally known as a folk legend in this area. It is also most famously known as the filming location for David Cronenberg's 1983 film The Dead Zone, starring Christopher Walken. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about today, Stephen King. Stephen King is a prolific author who has written over 40 novels and many other short story collections. I myself am a lifelong Stephen King fan, and I've read many of his novels. I am also a student at Brock University and training to become a teacher for high school. Specifically, my teachables are in history and English. Recently, in my technology class, I was given the assignment to do a Genius Hour blog where I researched a topic of my choice. For my blog, I chose to research the themes of Stephen King's works that interconnect to his life and other works. These themes that I'll be talking about today in my TED Talk are the themes of friendship, good versus evil, and writing. The first theme, friendship, is what I'm going to be telling you about today here at the Screaming Tunnel. The theme of friendship in Stephen King's works often deal with both adults and children and how they differently and somewhat samely deal with this topic. Let's begin with Stephen King's life. Stephen King grew up in Maine in the 1950s. He has famously said that he had few friends when he was a kid and felt like an outcast. This is what led him to the horror genre and becoming a writer. Stephen King also bases many of his novels off of his time as a child in Maine, both as a lonely person who grew up with few friends and as somebody who was picked on by bullies. That's why in many of his novels, the bullies are all 1950s greasers with black jackets and slicked back hair. Stephen King has based many of his famous novels on his childhood, from his novella The Body, which was later turned into a movie Stand By Me, and his novel The Dreamcatcher. One of his most famous novels that deals with childhood, however, is It from 1986. In the novel It, 7 friends band together to fight a cosmic entity known as Pennywise the Dancing Clown. Together, they defeat Pennywise, but have to reunite later in their adulthood to battle him again. This novel deals with the themes of friendship, both looking at it as an adult and as children, and how often we love our friends, but they grow apart from us over time. Stephen King takes a look at childhood in this novel in a realistic and simplistic manner that does a good job of reaching any reader. The next theme I'll be talking to you about is writing. Now I'm standing in front of the gazebo in Niagara-on-the-Lake, another filming location of the Dead Zone, where star Christopher Walken finds a gruesome murder scene. Another theme that Stephen King writes a lot about is writing itself. Stephen King uses writing as a theme because he himself is a writer, and so many of his characters are writers because that's what he knows so much about. Most of his writer characters fit into 2 camps. Those who are role model-like characters with few flaws, such as Ben Mears in Salem's Lot or Bill Denborough in It, and more realistic depictions of writers that are adaptations of King himself. Characters like Jack Torrance in The Shining or Thad Beaumont in The Dark Half. One of King's most personal works about writing is the novel Misery, where a writer is taken hostage by his #1 fan and forced to write a book. Misery was written just a few years after the novel The Eyes of the Dragon, a fantasy novel that received much backlash from his fans for not being horror. King wrote the novel Misery in response to this and a criticism of his fans, and ironically, it turned out to be one of his most successful novels. Next, and finally, I'll be talking about the theme of good versus evil in Stephen King's writing. Now I'm standing outside of a house in Niagara-on-the-Lake that was used as protagonist Johnny Smith's house in The Dead Zone. The final theme I'm going to be talking about today is the theme of good versus evil. This is a classic literary conflict that Stephen King uses in many of his writings. Many of the times when this theme is used in literature, symbolism is relied on heavily to tell this theme. In Stephen King books, however, his characters are often richly detailed, and through this characterization, we get to learn about their past and aspects, and because of this, the final conflict in many of his books relies on our knowledge of the characters and us knowing them through so many pages. 2 of his most famous novels that use the theme of good versus evil are It and The Stand. Stephen King has said before in his life that he believes people are inherently good, but he himself has experienced the darker side of humanity, as for many years he was addicted to drugs and alcohol before being rehabbed. In conclusion, my findings after examining all three of these themes are that all of the themes that Stephen King writes about are somehow connected to his personal life, either whether that's through his childhood and being bullied because of his lack of friends, his writing and conflict with being perceived as a professional writer, and his addiction to drugs and alcohol and eventual rehab. For me, the implications of this project mean that as I continue to read Stephen King's works and some of his novels that I haven't read yet, as well as new ones yet to come out, I will continue to look for these themes and see how they connect and are intercut through all of his works and novels. Thank you very much for listening to my TED Talk today. Have a good day.